You ever wait for weeks for that perfect rose to bloom, only to watch it just fizzle out? It turns brown and shrivels up before it even gets a chance to open. It is so frustrating, right? Well, today, we're going to solve that mystery. We're going to find the invisible pests ruining your roses with a surprisingly simple, super low-tech trick. You know the picture in your head, right? A gorgeous, perfect, vibrant rose. But the reality for so many of us is this sad, brown, deformed little bud that just gives up on life. It's the classic expectation versus reality, and it is enough to make any gardener just a little bit crazy. So what's the deal here?
And the thing is, you've done everything right. The watering, the sun, the food, everything. So what is this invisible culprit behind the floral crime scene? Well, let's play detective and figure out this little garden whodunit. All right, it's time to properly introduce the tiny vandals that are causing all this heartbreak. See, these culprits have a name, and once you know what you're actually looking for, you can finally start to fight back.
So say hello to thrips. These are tiny little insects, and they're basically microscopic vampires for your plants. They have these really unique, sharp mouth parts that they use to kind of scrape open plant cells, and then they just suck out all the contents. It's a pretty brutal feeding method, and it's what causes all the devastation.
Now, when I say tiny, I really mean it. A typical adult thrips is less than 2 millimeters long. I mean, that is smaller than a single grain of rice. It's this minuscule size that makes them pretty much invisible when they're hiding out on a leaf or tucked deep inside a flower bud. No wonder you can't see them.
So how can you be sure it's thrips? Well, you gotta look for the evidence. You might see this weird silvery or bronze sheen on the petals where they've been feeding. Of course, the biggest clue is that deformed bud that just refuses to open. You might also see brown, scorched petal edges. Gardeners have a name for that. They call it blasting. Or even these dark, dead streaks on the flowers. And, as if all that wasn't bad enough, they can also spread some really nasty plant viruses. Okay, but it's not all doom and gloom. Here's the good news. You do not need a fancy microscope or a science lab to find these things. Your secret weapon is probably sitting in your home office right now, inside your printer. Let's talk about the brilliantly simple paper test. And look, I know this might sound like some weird garden hack you saw online, but it's actually legit science. It's a modern, streamlined version of a classic technique called knockdown sampling. That's literally what scientists do. They knock bugs off a plant to count them. It's the perfect mix of old-school bug hunting and our modern need for fast, accurate answers.
So you want to know how to do it? Let's walk through it. It's a super simple, step-by-step guide that will have you finding these hidden pests in like 30 seconds. It is incredibly easy.
Okay, here we go. First, just grab a plain old sheet of white paper. Next, go find a rosebud that looks a little suspicious, one that hasn't opened yet. Now hold the paper right underneath it, and then with your other hand, give the stem a few sharp little taps. Tap, tap, tap. Finally, look down at the paper. You're looking for tiny, dark specks that suddenly start moving. See them? Bingo. Those are your thrips. I know, right? It sounds almost too simple to actually work, but there's some really elegant, simple science behind why this tap test is so effective.
This right here, this is the aha moment. Think about it. On a green leaf or a colorful petal, a tiny dark thrips is basically wearing camouflage. You'll never spot it. But the second that same thrips falls onto a stark white background, bam! It has absolutely nowhere to hide. It just pops.
So it all boils down to two key principles. First, good old-fashioned physics. That sharp tap you give the stem uses inertia to break the thrip's tiny little grip on the plant, and then gravity does the rest of the work. And second, of course, is visual contrast. That white paper creates the perfect high-contrast background, making even the tiniest thrips stand out. Okay, so you've done the test, you've seen the little specks, now what? Well, this is where the paper test goes from being a cool trick to being a genuinely powerful tool for making smarter, more targeted decisions in your garden.
This is where you can start thinking like a pro. You're not just guessing anymore, you can actually quantify the problem. If you tap out a bud and you only see 1 or 2 thrips, okay, you're in the monitor zone. No need to panic, just keep an eye on things. But if you're consistently seeing 5, 10, a whole bunch of them, that's your signal. You've hit the action threshold and it's probably time to intervene.
Now, let's be real. No method is perfect. The pros are obvious. It's fast, it's free, you can't beat free, and it gives you a really accurate reading for one specific spot. But there are a few limitations. A windy day can kind of ruin your results, it's hard to be perfectly consistent with your tapping every time, and it can't tell you exactly which species of thrips you have. So it's an amazing tool, but it's good to know its limits.
Ultimately, what this is all about is being a smarter gardener. The paper test is a cornerstone of a strategy called Integrated Pest Management, or IPM. And the whole idea is to avoid just blanketing your garden with pesticides just in case. Instead, you act like a surgeon. You use treatments precisely when and only where you know for a fact they're needed.
And what's really cool is that this classic, super simple test isn't just standing still. Believe it or not, this low-tech method is getting a 21st century upgrade, making it even more powerful for all of us. Just imagine this for a second. You could clip a cheap little macro lens on your smartphone and take a super clear photo of the paper. Now you have a permanent record. You could even text that photo to an expert for advice. And get this, in the very near future, you could have an app that uses AI to instantly count the thrips in your photo for you, taking out all the guesswork. How cool is that? You know, the paper test is just a fantastic reminder that sometimes the most effective solutions are the simplest ones. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other simple, powerful tools are just hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to discover them in our own backyards? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me, and happy gardening.